I'm going to demonstrate how to do some annotation by using the first chapter from the book Moby Dick. The first sentence says, "Call me Ishmael." So I'm going to box the name Ishmael because that is the name he wants to go by. Right, then he goes on to say, "Some years ago, never mind how long precisely." So I'm going to box years ago because that is telling me when. So I've boxed who and I've boxed when. So that's a name and that's a date, even though it's not an actual date, but it does tell me kind of a time. So he says, "Never mind how long precisely, having little or no money." So I'm going to highlight that he has no money because that's an important detail that tells me something about Ishmael. So he says, "Having little or no money in my purse and nothing particular to interest me on shore." So if he's got nothing of interest, that must mean that he is bored. So I'm going to put that right here. He's bored. Okay, he says, "I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery part of the world. It is a way I have of driving off the spleen and regulating the circulation." So I'm going to circle the word spleen because it doesn't sound to me like it's the body organ, not if he's wanting to drive it off. So when I look up the definition of the word spleen, I do find out that it is a noun, and an old meaning for it is to have bad temper or to feel spite. Okay, so we know that Ishmael is bored, and we know that he's not feeling very happy. So I'm going to continue on. He says, "Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul, whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, and especially when my hypos gets such an upper hand of me." It's a word I don't know, so I'm going to circle it. And here's what you can see is that the word choices he has here definitely show a negative sense of things. Words like grim, damp, drizzly, coffin, funeral. These words show that he is not very happy. He's not seeing the world through a happy lens. Okay, so let's get to the word hypos and its definition. Hypos is actually an abbreviation for a much larger word. It is a shortened version of the word hypochondria. Hypochondria is when you have a morbid state of mind and you feel depression or melancholy, but you don't really know why. That's hypos. Okay, so he says, "Whenever my hypos gets such an upper hand of me that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from deliberately stepping into the street and methodically knocking people's hats off, then," and this is key, "then I account it high time to get to sea as soon as I can." It's easy to see that going to the ocean, sailing, working on a ship, these things are like therapy to our speaker. In the next sentence, he says, "This is my substitute for pistol and ball." So think of it like this. A lot of guys would go out and shoot their pistol or play some sort of sports in order to get their anxiety or their stress or their bad feelings out. But Ishmael, he wants to go to the ocean. That's his therapy. To make it easier to remember this information, I'm going to summarize it in the margins. And here, I'm going to put that whenever he feels restless, he decides to get work on a ship and sail for a while. And so by doing that, I summarize the main point of that paragraph. Now let's review everything that I have done so far. First of all, I boxed the key terms, so that was the name of the character. Then I boxed when it was happening, so from the time that he is telling the story, it was some years ago. Then I highlighted key or important details regarding the topic. So I highlighted things about Ishmael, and then in the center part, I highlighted words that reflected his feelings. And I also circled the words that I didn't know, such as spleen and hypos, and I looked them up. And then finally, to the left of the paragraph, I did put a summary of the main ideas that that paragraph was giving to me. Now when you annotate the text, I expect to be able to see you having similar markings on your page. I will check to see if you're boxing key terms, circling words you don't know, and highlighting important pieces of information. And then, as necessary, putting a summary of the main points in the margins. Feel free to refer back to this particular entry task video anytime you need to have a reminder of how to annotate properly.